Welcome to Midday Mobile News for RCR Wireless. I'm Sean Kinney.
I'm Joey Jackson. Happy Friday, Sean.
You too.
Let's give a big thank you again to our sponsor, Telecom Careers, as always, the industry's largest resume database and job board. We'd also like to welcome our editor-in-chief, Dan Meyer, who's joining us from his office in Denver, Colorado. How's it going, Dan?
Yeah, good, Dan. That's, I wanted to start the show by talking a little bit about network function virtualization and software-defined networks. A little complicated, overlapping technology areas that, of course, I assume you're somewhat of an expert in. So we talked a little bit on Global Joe about this partnership between Huawei and RedHat on deploying carrier-grade OpenStack cloud platforms. So Dan, why is this partnership significant?
Well, it's a good question. Obviously, yeah, these are, again, two of the probably newer acronyms to work their way into the telecom space, all kind of centered around virtualization. So this agreement here is just kind of another, I guess another brick in the wall, if that's the right word for it, but for, I guess, the move towards virtualization. These carriers and these companies are looking to get their foot in, kind of in the door here when it comes to being not first to market, but I guess getting their IP into play when it comes to virtualization. So this deal between Huawei and Red Hat, it's a good move by them to kind of counter some of the other bigger companies that have come on board with this, whether it's Ericsson or Cisco or other companies that are really pushing, I guess, their standards when it comes to virtualization. So this deal here is an important deal. It just shows that when it comes to virtualization, NFV, SDN, these different types of network virtualization options, that we're still kind of in the early stages, kind of the Wild West stages, really, where people are still trying to find their footing. There's not really any set rules right now. And so everybody's just trying to find where they're going to be in this space going forward. Obviously the big companies, like I said, like Ericsson and Cisco, they've got a lot of clout behind them when it comes to these spaces. So some of these smaller companies or newer companies to the space, whether it's Huawei or OpenHat or other ones like that, they're just trying to find their position right now. So this deal just kind of is another move in that way of companies trying to find their place in the space right now.
All right, very good, Dan. And we were talking before the cameras started rolling here when we were setting the call up. I think you're headed out to Silicon Valley next week. I know TM Forum and Informa are both going on. What do you expect to learn at those shows in regards to this SDN NFV stuff?
Yeah, I'll be heading out there next week, like you said. The TM Forum events have, over the past couple of years, really turned to a lot of focus on virtualization. A lot of sessions on virtualization. A lot of companies who are there are talking about their virtualized platforms. And so I know I've got quite a few meetings set up with a lot of companies that are playing in the virtualized space. So I expect a lot of news to come out, on kind of where they're at in the space, how telecom companies are adopting their platforms. A lot of keynote addresses will be on it as well. So the show itself, it's a good learning place to go to just kind of get a kind of heads up on where things are. Again, like I said earlier, again, we're still somewhat early in the process when it comes to the actual adoption of these platforms. And so going to these events, it's interesting because you do get kind of the behind the scenes look at where the actual platforms are in terms of development. But there's still kind of that disconnect when it comes to how they're actually being deployed in the market. And so that's kind of where these shows help out a little bit, is kind of get some basis there on what's happening. So I expect, again, a lot of big news on kind of where we're at, how the development's coming along. But hopefully we'll get to talk to some of the operators there too, and kind of see where they're at when it comes to actually deploying virtualized platforms.
Yeah, that sounds exciting, Dan, and we'll maybe be able to hook up with you while you're out at the shows next week to get a little commentary from you. Another story we're following this morning, a big NFV cloud operating company in California, PlumGrid. They've entered into 3 partnerships with some other ancillary type companies, and they're really looking to make the enterprise cloud experience a little more robust. And this is a lot of it's designed sort of to use these virtualized network environments to run reporting and applications instead of running them right on the mainframe and sort of take the physical pressure off of the infrastructure. Dan, what are some of the other advantages for enterprises to make this transition to the cloud?
Yeah, that's a good point. Obviously, the enterprise has been a big focus of initial virtualized offerings, whether it's cloud or whatever it's going to be. Again, enterprises are probably at the forefront of needing these types of solutions. The basis for virtualization is it lowers the operating costs for companies when they're trying to deploy applications across their enterprise. So, for enterprises who are obviously always looking at the bottom line, any way that they can reduce costs is always a benefit for them. When you look at cloud platforms and things like that, again, this just allows them to kind of, like you said, kind of pull some of these applications off of their mainframes and put them into a virtualized environment that is a little easier to scale. Again, lower operating costs involved there. In the past, the issue has always been, reliability issues. That seems to be being taken care of to an extent. A lot of these applications that were initially run in these virtualized platforms weren't, the most pressing applications where they were, they didn't need to have the 5 nines type of reliability. Now companies are getting a little more comfortable with it, so now they're starting to push more of these more enterprise-focused and pressing types of applications into these virtualized environments. And so, this move here is another one of those instances where, the support is getting better and better for these platforms. Enterprises are becoming a little more open to doing more and more in these virtualized platforms. And so, again, it's just another move to kind of this virtualized world that we're going into. Obviously, for maybe the more broader consumer-focused companies, we're still maybe a few years away. But at least for enterprises, they're moving pretty quickly into this virtualized space.
All right, that's a lot of good info from Dan, and Joey and I, we always get a kick of out of your worst of the week column comes out every Friday. Always get sort of a little levity injected into the telecommunications biz, which is always nice.
It needs, of course, yeah.
So Dan, this week you touched on a little bit about carrier price wars and the ongoing FCC broadband spectrum auction. Can you just sort of give us an idea of what's really grinding your gears this week?
Yeah, well, these are a couple of topics that we've been covering pretty regularly here at RCR. And so, when it comes to the rate plan wars that are going on, that have been going on for the past couple of months, as I mentioned in the article in the Worst of the Week column, obviously I'm all for these types of rate plan wars. I think they're great. They're great to cover, adds excitement to the market. But as I mentioned in the column, I guess the downside has become that carriers are adding a lot of confusion to the market as well. Again, for those of us who perhaps follow it on a day-to-day basis, we're able to absorb maybe and be a little more up to date on what's happening. But I can't imagine a consumer going into a store nowadays trying to work their way through the various rate plans, the family plans, the device financing options, the tier contracts. They've added so much complexity, it seems, to their offerings that I fear that the average consumer out there, my mom, for instance, going to a wireless store, I can't imagine her having any idea what's going on anymore. And so that's kind of something I touch on a bit on the column. It's just that it does seem like, again, from our point of view, it's great, but I think carriers need to kind of watch how they're deploying these new rate plans and options, just so they don't overcomplicate the situation that's already fairly complicated as it is. So that was the topic there. When it came to the spectrum auction, again, we've been covering that on a day-to-day basis here. One thing I touch on is it has slowed down a little bit. The FCC this week has increased the number of bidding rounds per day and shortened the length of each round. But as we're kind of working towards another holiday coming up, I guess the issue might be, how are they going to kind of schedule bidding when it comes to the holiday days coming up? And so there's a good chance that this auction could run into early 2015, which again just kind of prolongs the agony, I think, for a lot of companies. But again, the auction's been great to follow. Again, I'm a diehard, loving the auction activity. I did mention that some of the bigger licenses haven't received any new bids lately. So it does seem like perhaps some of the activity stopped there. But again, some of the licenses, the New York J Block license, which is a big license, it's going for $2.7 billion, which is 5 or 6 times more than what a similar license was going for back in 2006 in a similar auction. So commodity, high price commodity nowadays. And it seems like operators are throwing a lot of money
That's good stuff.
Yeah,
a lot of good information.
figures.
Dan, I want to ask you about this new Infonetics research report that digs into how carriers use big data analytics. You read some of these reports. What are some of the big takeaways?
Well, yeah. So Infonetics, they've been covering the virtualized space pretty heavily, and so they came out with a new report, kind of looking at kind of where we're at in terms of how operators are starting to refocus some of their spending efforts on this area. Again, traditionally operators have been a lot hardware focused, things like that. So the Infonetics report, they surveyed operators around the world and are just finding that more and more operators are looking to kind of adjust some of their spending habits to these new software types of applications, these different platforms now, to help them, I guess, maximize their investments in their networks. I mean, obviously operators have been spending billions and billions of dollars on their networks, on the hardware side of things, and so now they're trying to, I guess, squeeze some more of the operating expense out of that, and trying to get some more more usage out of their networks. And so that's kind of what the Infinetics report looked at, was just how operators are looking going forward to do a lot more spending and those types of things, as opposed to just strict hardware spending.
All right, that's Dan Meyer, our editor-in-chief. Dan, we always appreciate you joining us on Mobile Midday.
And Dan, staying on this FCC theme, you've got another story coming up on RCR Wireless that dives into the FCC review of 2 high-profile telecom mergers. Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, so I believe it was yesterday, the FCC restarted their review clock on a couple of big mergers. One is the AT&T pending acquisition of DirecTV. These type of deals, when they go to the regulators, the FCC has instituted a 150-day sort of clock, review clock on these processes. So it kind of gives the companies a bit of a calendar that they can work on when it comes to how this review process is going to play out. And so these two are pretty large deals in the telecom space. A few months ago, the FCC came in and stopped the review process. There were some court issues, some problems in the proceedings when it came to privacy of some of the agreements that are part of these deals. And so the FCC stopped the process for both of these deals. They've kind of issues recently here, and now have restarted up the.
Yeah, folks, it looks like we lost audio on
having a few
Dan
technical
Meyer
issues.
there. Yeah, we'll try to get that worked out. But I know, Joey, we've heard a lot about smart cities lately. What's going on there?
Yeah, let's switch gears. Big news out of San Jose, California. This is Silicon Valley, the hub of tech scene in North America, arguably the world. The city of San Jose is making Wi-Fi for smart cities smarter with a little help from Ruckus Wireless. Let's take a look.
San Jose is the 10th largest city in the United States and 3rd largest in California. For San Jose, becoming a smart city is a necessity as we are faced with real challenges in our own growth. The Internet of Things is poised to transform cities in the same way that the same technology has transformed your home, from the thermostat to the light bulb. Take that at a much larger scale. We have LED street lights, we have transportation sensors, we have air quality and water quality sensors. Those take what the same benefits occur in your house and take it to the entire community. A smart city collects data from within its community. Platforms like our wireless network, we extend the reach of sensors to collect real-time data of what's going on. Sensors can include air quality monitoring, traffic monitoring, people counting. Gives us key business insights into how effective programs and investments for the city are doing. Transactional data is collected and analyzed to provide insights and business intelligence into how the city can plan for smart growth. The wireless network has to be robust enough to act as if it was wired while still reducing costs.
All right, that's a great video piece. That's
yeah, they're doing some good stuff out there.
That smart city stuff I just find fascinating, the application of the technology. If you want to see that full video, you can check it out, linked on rcrwireless.com. And really interesting stuff going on out in San Jose. And we have a lot of other multimedia content up on our YouTube channel on this smart city aspect. A lot of it we produced a few weeks ago out in Stockholm, so I'd encourage you to take a look at that.
Let's take a look at some of these smart city initiatives going on in Stockholm, Sweden. That city is Silicon Valley, sort of tech hub of Northern Europe.
Yeah, we did some great pieces out there. So yeah, just really check those out on YouTube. Smart cities, that's going to be a big watchword going forward. And you know, Wi-Fi, obviously a pervasive technology. Zio just announced the acquisition of IdeaTech Network, and that's a Kansas-based company. So Zio is an international provider of bandwidth, and their network spans 81,000 miles across the U.S. and Europe, connects more than 15,000 buildings. So that should be a big boost in connectivity coming to the customers there in Kansas. And going back to software news, Mavenir Systems, based right here in Texas, up the road in Dallas, they've gone in with T-Mobile of the Czech Republic to converge IMS core and voice over LTE network solutions. VoLTE is a big emerging technology. It runs your voice calls over the LTE network. You can do some really interesting things like get a HD voice call, which might not sound like anything, but once you really listen to it, it's quite impressive, particularly over speakerphone. And Mavenir's end-to-end core solution will converge T-Mobile's platform to accommodate that new service and some other options.
All right, well, that about does it for me.
That's right.
Thanks for joining us for Mobile Midday News, and big thank you to our sponsor, as always, telecomcareers.com. We'll see you back here Monday for Global Joe.
And I also want to, right at the end of the show, if we can, I want to plug IEEE GlobeCom. It's a big show going on here in
we'll be
Austin.
Out that.
We're going to try to take Global Joe and Mobile Midday on the road and broadcast from there, so cross your fingers for us. In the meantime, join us back on Monday.
See you Monday.